Lily here with the DNR Outdoor Adventure Center, joining you today from my local park. Today is April 28th and it is a special time here in Michigan's woodlands. There's a spectacle happening here on the forest floor, but it doesn't last for very long, so make sure you don't miss it. Let's take a look. The plants I'd like to introduce to you today are often called spring ephemerals. Ephemeral meaning temporary. These species are taking advantage of the sunlight that's able to reach the forest floor in early spring because the trees are missing something. Their leaves, of course. Later in the spring and summer, after the leaves come out of the trees and the forest floor becomes shaded, these species will gradually give way to other species that tolerate the shade. And they'll become dormant or die down until next spring when they'll see them again. The most prevalent woodland flower at the end of April in this particular woodlot is the beautiful trout lily. Usually it is yellow, but occasionally it can be white as well. However, most of what you see of trout lily will just be leaves. We'll find out why. In fact, trout lily likely gets its name from the color and pattern on the leaves, which somewhat resembles that of the body of a trout. The green that you see here on the forest floor is mostly trout lily leaves. This time of year, in some woodlands, these leaves carpet the entire forest floor. Yellow trout lily may seem like it's a common woodland wildflower. However, keep in mind, it's pretty slow to spread and grow, and this woodland has been developing for a long time. It can take up to 7 years for the leaves of trout lily to have enough energy to form a flower. Now here's a true beauty of spring. Literally, it's called spring beauty. It's one of the more common woodland wildflowers that's easy to spot, sometimes grows out into grassy areas as well. Now imagine you're a bee and it's pretty cold out, it's early spring and there's not a lot of nectar around. Those pink lines on the spring beauty will make it easier for you to find that nectar. Meet one of my favorites called cut-leaved toothwort. It's actually in the mustard family of plants. Notice that it has usually very narrow leaves. They're deeply divided and they have what we call serrations on the edges. So think of a serrated knife. Cut-leaf toothwort can occasionally form pretty thick mats along the woodland floor where there's a healthy population of it. All those little white flowers that you see here are from cut-leaf toothwort. It often grows at the base of trees and fallen dead trees. Watch for this beautiful blue violet in your lawn in the early spring. It can be an important source of nectar for early spring pollinators like the bumblebee when there's not a whole lot of nectar available yet. Waiting a little while to cut your lawn in the spring can keep these species, like the blue violet, as an important source of nectar for our pollinators. I'm glad I was able to spot this single beautiful white flower from this species, as most of the plants of this species have already dropped all of their petals. As you can see, this one has and this one has. Here's actually some petals on the forest floor here. This flower belongs to Bloodroot. Oh my gosh, and there's a bee fly getting pollen from it right now. That's one of our earliest pollinators. This is actually a fly that mimics a bee. It's fuzzy and it's yellow. That was awesome. That's probably never going to happen again. You guys are really, really lucky. So I have to go back to our surprise visitor for a second. This here is an image of a bee fly. It is one of many insects that mimics the coloration of bees and wasps for protection. Bee flies are very hairy, which helps keep them warm in cold early spring days, and it also makes them a great pollinator, as many pollen grains get stuck to them. Paying attention to early spring woodland wildflowers up close could help you get a glimpse at one of these fascinating insects. This taller plant of spring woodlands has a very inconspicuous flower. Here's one right here. This is called blue cohosh. It may get its name from the bluish hint on its leaves, or it may get its name from the blue fruit that comes later in the summer and actually resembles blueberries. However, it's poisonous, so don't eat it. Hopefully you're wondering what you can do to help preserve these valuable species and ecosystems. So here's a few quick things. When you're taking a hike, make sure you stay on the trail. Walking off the trail could trample some of these species, or you may even have seeds or pollen from invasive species stuck to your shoes or your clothes without realizing it. So you could also bring a rag or a brush with you to wipe your shoes off a little bit before and after your hike, and that way you could reduce the spread of invasive species. Also, you never want to pick these species. It could take them many, many years to form flowers, so picking them can be very damaging in the long run. If you're interested in taking even more action to protect these species, see if there's a local park or nature conservancy near you that does invasive species removal events. Invasive species can be a serious threat to some of these native woodland wildflowers, and that's a great way to help preserve them. While you certainly don't have to identify these species to enjoy their beauty, if you're interested in learning more about how to identify wildflowers, here's a few guides that can get you started. The Peterson Guide to Eastern Wildflowers, Wildflowers of Michigan, or the Newcomb's Wildflower Guide. If you decide to take a walk in the woods this spring, see how many of these species you can find. Thanks again for joining me today here in my local park.